Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
Testing. Oh my God. How I'm going to come in on the first Man Up show of the year with a broken up voice. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hi guys. How are you? Happy New Year. So this is the first Man Up show of 2025, the live stream. We took a little break, of course, because of the holidays. I hope everyone had a really good holidays. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you, Angie. Hi, Katalia. Katalia, you always say you love the judge, but do you love me as well? I need some love too. Thank you, Katalia. So I went and visit Memphis over the holidays. I have fun. I was supposed to upload in my short some video. I didn't get a chance to do it yet, but I am going to do it. And we are going to talk about it during the show today, but later on in the show because we have a special guest coming up. Yes, we do, honey. We are staying on that Fani train. Yes. Angie. Of course, we got to talk about Fani Willis update. So we have a special guest. And I will introduce her when she comes up, and that will probably be in like 10 minutes. But we have to wait for the judge to get here. And we all know that's the only thing that will not change. He has to make his grand entrance. But he will be up shortly as well. And we have to talk about today, Congress certified President Donald J. Trump as the 47th president. So it's official. He has been certified through the House, through the Senate, i.e. Congress. Kamala Harris slammed her gavel, right? And it's done. Yes. And today is January 6th. So 4 years ago today, we all know what happened on January the 6th. What was it? January 6th, 2020. Right? Or was it 2021? No, 2021. January 6th. So, of course, we have to remember January 6th because I'm going to pose a question. Now that Trump is the president, the new incoming president, will he release the January 6th protest prisoners? Most likely, and I think he said yes, he will, right? And he has the power to do so. So guys, please hit that like button. Please share this video on your social media outlets. And we're going to have a really good show today. I didn't do much changes because I was busy trying to enjoy a little vacay and like stay away from social media. But in the coming months, this first quarter, you will be seeing a rollout of changes like an updated thumbnail, updated intro, all that good stuff or whatever, upgrade, leveling up. So yeah, so Congress certifies. Well, what are we going to talk about? Oh, I wrote it down. We got to talk about Fani. We got to talk about January 6th. We got to talk about Trump certification. Of course, we got to talk about the deportation bill. Was that the first bill that Congress passed since Congress came back into session on Friday, the 3rd? And yes, we got to talk about Jimmy Carter, R.I.P. Jimmy Carter. He was 100 years old. Rest in peace. He finally kicked the bucket. I do want to mention Joe Biden's Medal of Honor ceremony, Aretha Franklin, Jay-Z, a little bit of Diddy. And when our guests come up, whenever the judge gets here, and I guess, come up, she probably gets here before him, we're going to kick it off with talking about Fani Willis. But I wanted to bring this up. Let me share this real quick while I have some time. Let's see. Yes, it's this. Do I want to go this way or this way? I'll go this way. This is cute. Okay, honey. So honestly, the Democrats is not going to take this down sitting quietly. Apparently, we may be headed for another pandemic, because now they're saying Americans should prepare for a nationwide outbreaks of flu, COVID, RSV, and norovirus. Why is this new? All these little same diseases that we have, it comes every year. But now they're making a big deal. And apparently the first American died from the RSV or the norovirus.
What some people are terming the quad-demic of infectious diseases hitting hard this season. And joining us now is Dr. Stephanie Widmer with more on how to stay healthy. Doctor, good morning to you. It's great to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. So I guess let's talk about these viral syndromes.
And I want to jump right into some of the numbers here as we get into it, because the flu, COVID, RSV, norovirus making the rounds this winter. RSV cases higher than they were this time of year last year. 35 states reporting high or very high levels of respiratory illness. And the CDC estimates that there have been at least 5.3 million illnesses, 63,000 hospitalizations, and 2,700 deaths from the flu so far this season. So we just mentioned earlier, people calling this a quad-demic. Is that really an accurate description? And how would you explain what's really going on?
So this term quad-demic, it refers to the convergence of high levels of, just like you said, flu, COVID, RSV, and this norovirus. And there are multiple factors at play here. Different social, environmental, biologic factors that are causing these numbers that, in New York, it's not unprecedented to see high levels of viral syndromes, especially during the winter when there's indoor crowding, increased travel, lots of different gatherings. But there are other factors at play here, such as viral evolution, new strains that emerge, lots of different things.
Doctor, how do we know what we have? Because so many of these symptoms can be so similar.
So that's completely true. So fever, chills, headache, body aches, fatigue, things like that are pretty much across the board with different viral syndromes. Norovirus is a little bit different, on the other hand. That presents primarily with GI symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, aches, things like that. But that's not necessarily unique to norovirus. You can have some overlap with the flu. So based on symptoms alone, it's not always entirely possible to tell which viral syndrome you have.
Wow. Doctor, when we pulled up the first map that showed where in the country there was very high or just high, I was struck by right here, the areas where it's very high, it's not just in one concentrated area. Can you explain what may be causing where we're seeing those spikes? Is it just population? And then what are best remedies? When should you go to the emergency room?
Sure. So like I said, it depends. Different outbreaks happen for different reasons, indoor crowding, different strains, different things that are going on in the community. But, pretty much across the board, the way we care for these viral syndromes is what we call conservative management and supportive care. So getting enough rest, staying adequately hydrated, taking over-the-counter medications, fever relievers, pain reducers, acetaminophen and ibuprofen, things like that, kind of letting the virus run its course. The good news is that these symptoms pretty much tend to resolve themselves spontaneously. But when you're experiencing things like shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, if you're unable to walk or care for yourself, and if you're unable to eat or tolerate anything by mouth and you're not able to drink water, that's a pretty good time to go to the emergency department for an evaluation.
So you mentioned some of the remedies there, but what about prevention?
So prevention is key. One thing that's very important, if you haven't gotten your flu vaccine or any other vaccines you might be eligible for, it is not too late. So reach out to your healthcare provider to see which vaccines you can be eligible for. Hand washing is huge, especially with this norovirus. So hand sanitizer may not be 100% effective for norovirus. So washing your hands at least for
key to remember.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
Yes, because a lot of these viruses can live on surfaces. So washing your hands adequately, not touching your face, your nose, your mouth, things like that are huge for prevention.
Dr. Stephanie Whitmer, thank you so much.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Everything that you're talking about is nothing new. First of all, annually, 20,000 people die annually from the flu, and that has been going on for decades. Decades. Now, in 2020, we were hit with a pandemic, and everything shut down. What is a quademic? And this is why I don't listen or watch mainstream news. I don't, because they pull anything to try and scare people, to get people nervous, just so people could watch them. Talking about the flu, even when you talk about the preventive, right? Washing your hands. Yes. First of all, if you wash your hands every time you walk in the house from coming outside, before and after you eat, of course, before and after you use the bathroom, and throughout the day, you're going to drop your sickness by 50%. So washing hands is number one, and other preventive things. But the flu is nothing new. This RSV is nothing new. When you're talking about respiratory, that has to do with the environment. Our environment, especially depending on where you live at, if you live in a metropolitan city, is filled with chemicals and pollution. So people have been suffering from all of these things for decades. So why you have to call it a name? People are good with labeling because they just want you to be scared so you could tune in and watch and think, oh my God, something bad is about to happen. No, just take care of yourself. Yes, wash your hands, go to the doctor, eat right, double up on your vitamins and your minerals. Get your flu shot if you want to. And you notice that doctors, and you don't see commercials of any more COVID boosters. I haven't seen it in over 6 months. Why is that? Why nobody's not talking about getting your little COVID boosters anymore? I'm just saying, because flu shot never went out. So yeah, I just found it so ironic. Now Trump is certified as president. We got this quademic in the picture. Honey, this nation is not shutting down again. It's not. It is not. If y'all asses get sick, y'all just gonna have to get sick and go to the doctor. Nothing is not shutting down. No more masks. None of that. It's not happening. Right. It's all BS. It's all bull. It's all bull. Because every winter you have to deal with these type of viruses. Period. It's nothing new. Nothing new. So that was my monologue. The judge just texted me. He said he's just waiting on connection. Get myself back up in here. He's just waiting on connection. I don't be wanting to bring the guest on when he's not here. But I'm going to do it anyway. Because, honey, it's 2025. Update your Wi-Fi. Hi.
Good evening. How are you?
I mean, listen, this is, I like to be professional and, nice and cute about it or whatever, but things happen. So,
like you said, it's 2025.
Exactly.
Come on, Judge.
Hey, everybody needs to upgrade a little bit. Okay, let me put it this way. So, before we get started, how do you pronounce your name?
Trevian Cutie.
Trevian,
yes.
Okay. Because I was saying Trevian, but
yeah, I don't even want to slight you, but that's what the gays call me. Hey, Trevian.
All right, so I don't know. Should I just do the intro and then when the judge come in, he could just come in?
Yeah, I actually met Judge. The BBC was doing a documentary on me, and The judge was speaking, and I said, you know what, you've got to be in the documentary. So he's in the documentary as well.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. Well, again, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Travian Cutie. I am described as a publicist, a strategist, political. I am one of the leading cannabis lobbyists in the country. I'm also known for working with people like Kanye West. I was the only representative for men during the Me Too movement. So I worked with R. Kelly, Chris Brown, the lawyers for Bill Cosby. So I was a campaign manager to a congressional candidate in the 5th District of Georgia, running against John Lewis. And then we fast forward to now I am a co-defendant with President Trump in the Fulton County RICO, which is really not a RICO anymore.
Right.
It's on life support.
I think they took off the life
Right,
support.
it's on life. They pulled the plug.
That's done.
Oh, be prepared to be sick of me, because I am going to be on Fanny's ass to the day she die. I am never going to let her live it down, ever.
I wanted to share this.
Yes.
Yeah, this here. So yes, honey, because this was your famous what can I say, famous mugshot?
Yeah, hey, I practiced it for 2 hours because I knew it was going to make history. So yes.
Right. So this is you. And okay, the judge just texted me. He was like, it's not, his connection is not working. I don't know. Waiting on connection. Give me a second. Let me call him real quick. Okay, it's not ringing. I'm trying to call you. What is going on with your connection? I don't know what is. Yeah, sometimes he does have problems, and I used to use Zoom or StreamYards, but I'm using Restream, but it's the same thing. It shouldn't matter.
Right. This is the first time I've actually used Restream. It took me a second to figure it out.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the issue? Restream. You don't need an account. Did you have to make an account?
So you basically either have to go through your Gmail or you have to have an account. So if he has a Gmail, he can go through it that way. Then they have to verify it's you. So yeah, it took a second.
Wait, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? No. Okay, let me send it to you again. Okay. Wait a minute. All right. Okay, so try that one. I just sent it to you again. Mhm.
Let me enter my name.
Oh, here you go. Okay. Let's
You get it?
Yeah, he got it.
Okay.
There you go.
Well. Good evening.
Now we can't hear you, Judge. Say something. I hope we can hear him. Oh, you probably gotta we can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
I don't think he said anything.
But I don't even hear the noise in the background. Say something.
Right, we should hear the phone or something.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Take your mic off mute.
Just give us a second, folks.
Okay. No problem.
I don't know what happened. Okay, now he done took himself off. All this, you know how
give them grace.
Yeah. But you know how people say, okay, it's 2025, new this. I don't do that, honey. It's because it's only a day. It's only a day. So, all right. So I'll wait for him to come back up. But please reintroduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, my name is Trevian Cutie. I am a publicist, a political strategist, a cannabis lobbyist. I was the advocate for men during the Me Too movement. A lot of people know me from representing people like R. Kelly, Chris Brown, and working with the attorneys for Bill Cosby's first case because I don't work on appeals. I threw my hat in the ring as a campaign manager for a congressional candidate in 2020. I left there and I went to work for the David Perdue campaign. And fast forward, most people know me as being a co-defendant with President-elect Donald Trump in the Fulton County RICO. So I'm looking forward. It's got to be any day now. They're going to dismiss the case altogether. We're looking at, showing collusion with Fani Willis, basically prosecutorial misconduct. There's just so much that Fani is up against, and we're counting down the days. Is Joe Biden going to give her a preemptive pardon? We're not for sure, but for me, I also have evidence to turn over to show collusion with Fani Willis. So it's been a long, drawn-out case. The entire time I was investigating them, investigate me. I watched every step. I knew how they drew every charge. I knew who they were going after. I knew every move that they made. And I have that documented. So that information has been turned over as well.
Let me just ask you this real quick before I test Judge Audio. Why were you indicted in that Georgia election RICO case?
So in the indictment, I was charged with intimidating a witness. I got a call that there was a woman in Georgia that needed help. That person was, getting flack from both sides of the table. I went to see this woman, had an amazing conversation with her. She told me everything that went down. This will be a wonderful day because she can't be too comfortable right now knowing I'm sitting in the wind. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Judge, can you let's see if we can hear you.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yay! Hallelujah!
That thing was sending me through Google, which didn't work. By the way, you were in the park were you there when Fani sent word down for us to be quiet?
Yes, and you spoke on that for about 30 minutes. You said, we're not leaving. Who do you think you're talking to? Actually, I bought the BBC with me because I was speaking at that rally as well. And I have to send you the link because you're in the documentary as well.
Wow, we will be. By the way, Kamala, it's interesting. Biden has been doing some weird stuff. He signed an executive order that slid in under some obscure offshore use of petroleum facilities legislation from about 30 years ago. And the only way you can undo it is to get an act of Congress. So he just put 650 million acres of oceanic territory off limits to use for oil development or petroleum development with one stroke of the pen, which basically screws a good part of Trump's campaign. But here's the interesting thing about Kamala. Wade, I think, spilled his guts so he won't get charged with something that has too much liability for sentence, with a low sentencing cap, in other words, since you can't plea bargain in the federal system for a sentence. And what's going to happen is he met up in the White House with Kamala Harris, apparently Smith, apparently Bragg, apparently Letitia, and also Fani. And that makes it a conspiracy, which is interesting. Under American conspiracy law, you can criminally conspire to do an otherwise legal act if your intent is criminal. So all of them might get really jacked up, and I will be interested to see if Biden remains, shall we say, coherent long enough to issue a blanket pardon for them.
Right.
Which he might not do because he might not cover the conspiracy aspects, or he might word it wrong or different. I think there's going to be a special prosecutor, and you're going to get vindicated, and all these other folk are going to be looking at some jail time.
I can't wait. Prepare to be sick of me, because I am not letting Fani. You came for my child when she was in college. She couldn't go to school because you all were stalking her. It's on and popping. Your daddy got on the stand, told everybody that the lawyers prepped him to give you, vindicate your cash alibi. No. Till the day you die, I'm coming for you.
Well, you're married, aren't you?
I am married, yes.
Yeah. I know he's going to be glad to get that burden off of you, because that makes home life difficult. And I hope they throw the book at her, because it's disgusting and just scurrilous what that woman has done, along with some other folk, and what they've tried to do to create, what do they call it, lawfare now, which is an abusive process, which is another grounds to go after somebody on. So, by the way, Biden probably isn't smart enough to include that. He'll only deal with the primary offenses, which are going to get interesting if these folk have on their record that they got pardoned for such and such.
Right.
That becomes
terrible.
By the way, for disbarment of all of these attorneys, the ones I named, and perhaps Judge Mearsham, who really screwed the pooch when he didn't recuse himself with the obvious family bias on a particular outcome. So a whole lot of people may wind up losing law licenses or getting disciplined for what they wound up doing. So here we go, loop-de-loop, yada, yada, la, la, la.
And look at Jenna Ellis and look at Sidney Powell. I mean, this is like, they have got to be just biting their behinds over and over and over again. All you need, unless they were guilty. Like, I don't know what they did specifically, unless they were guilty, because I know there's no way in hell that I was going to plead guilty to something that Fani Willis and her, kindergarten teen, conjured up. Never going to happen. But
well, you weren't supposed to necessarily. It helped out if you didn't plead guilty, because that would have been made it over, gotten it over with. The intent, from what my experience suggests, is that they wanted to tie everybody up as long as is possible. Now, Mearsham has put himself on very thin ice by insisting upon going forward with the sentencing hearing on the 10th.
yes.
And that makes it very likely that he'll get caught up in an intense special prosecutorial investigation to see if he had anything to do with maintaining his status in the case instead of recusing himself, what with the very deep vested interest his daughter and wife had in the outcome. So what he's done becomes an abusive process, which might just ordinarily result in something along the lines of perhaps an admonition from the ethical mechanisms of New York for judges, but when it comes to perhaps collusion with the prosecutorial staff in New York, read Bragg, then that becomes conspiratorial, which makes it a felony, which removes it from the whole equation, which, by the way, for these people who are members of some kind of bar, Trump's pardon has absolutely nothing to do with the ethical considerations. So even if they don't wind up with jeopardy of doing penitentiary or jail time or getting a criminal sentence, it still is an ethical transgression that could result in discipline or loss of law license.
You know,
Go ahead.
Tina, if you go to my X account and if you scroll down, I posted a clip of Fani Willis's chief investigator on the phone. Keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling, rolling, rolling. Keep going, 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 and it should be right after. No, keep going. That one. Now listen to this call. This man called me at 10 o'clock at night. This was 18 months before the indictment. Listen to what he did.
And I believe it would be due to an incident that occurred, I believe, in Cobb County, Georgia. We're just reaching out to you just to, I should say first, I don't know if you're represented by counsel or not. We've been calling a lot of different folks. The reason why I say that, and typically, when I speak to people, that's one of the first questions that I usually ask. Because if you are represented by counsel, I wouldn't want to, continue to, continue with our conversation without, doing it the proper way.
I am definitely represented by counsel.
Okay, perfect. So can you, is it possible for you to give me your attorney's contact information and we can route everything, as far as communications through, whoever that is?
Why don't you send me your information and I will forward it to my counsel? Or you can actually give that to me right now.
Yeah, sure. Are you ready to copy?
I'm ready right now.
Okay, all right. I'll give you my email. My email is Mike, M-I-K-E, .Hill, H-I-L-L.
You're the one who wrote that secondary report, correct?
I'm sorry, say again?
You're the one who wrote the secondary report, correct?
I'm not, you said a secondary report? I'm not sure. What report would you, no, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm probably not that person because I don't know. I'm not sure what report you'd be referring to.
You're actually listed on the report, but okay.
A report from where exactly?
Okay, I'll take your information now.
Okay, yeah. Just again, I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, my email is mike.hill. And just in case there's any confusion, I work for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office.
Okay.
Yeah, the DA's office. So I haven't written like a road report in years now.
Okay, because there's a Mike Hill
but anyway,
on the report.
so I work for the DA's office. I'm a senior investigator there. The number that I'm calling you on is my desk line. It's 40. And is there an email that you want to provide an email or anything I can follow up with you with? And
ask me for any other information.
I can include, all the other folks, that's a part of my team, just in case you need their information as well.
I'm sure I can pass this on to my counsel and he can reach out. And you said this is your desk number, correct?
Yeah, this is my desk line. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. I will give him a call first thing tomorrow and pass this information along.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
All right, thank you so much.
Have a great evening. Bye.
You know what? Fani Willis is indirectly implicated because this is an investigator in her office, which the canons of ethics would charge to her as being responsible for in compliance with ethics. You have a counsel, and all they had to do was check to see what kind of correspondence had been entertained or entered through your attorney and contact him directly. There was no need to contact you. It was known.
This was 18 months before the indictment.
Yeah,
it was 18 months before the indictment. There were no attorneys.
Well, okay. You indicated you were represented by counsel at that point.
I had a defamation case. So
well, okay,
I'm not going to tell him that I'm not represented by counsel. If you
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying you indicated that you had counsel or that you intended to be represented by counsel, which means right there it was supposed to be cut off, but it wasn't. So that he is the investigator under her office and auspices means she's responsible for his conduct. That right there was just totally unethical, and that's chargeable against her, or it ought to be. So that is another strike against Fani Willis or Fani Willis.
It's definitely Fani. She got bourgeois. She got bougie at Howard.
Well, let me tell you this. I knew her father. I went to school with him for 8 years at UCLA. And at the time, there was a certain Miss Fanny who was active in the Black Student Union and some other things. And I have a sneaking suspicion, since I was around when she was born and he was in law school with me in 1972, when she was born and he passed out cigars, that Fanny was taken from the Fanny who was active in the Black Student Union and Black Student Alliance at the time. So, yeah.
I wanted to bring this up because we did a show 2 weeks ago exposing who Fani Willis' mother was, but I did not know you brought that information to light, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I broke that story, I think, 4 or 5 months ago. Ended up, finding the FBI wanted poster and then digging a little deeper, finding that everything on the internet was scrubbed concerning her mother. But then there was one single reference to her father and this woman that he was sitting in a picture with, and she was pregnant with then at the time baby Fani Willis. Now, people may not have, looked into Fani the way, because I always watch my enemies. I'm going to study my enemies. I know why Fani is a lawyer. It's not because her father is an attorney. It's because she wanted to vindicate what happened to her mother very early on in her life. So she swore to herself. She said publicly, this was the only thing I ever wanted to do, and she never told why. Now, right before Fani was taking on her position as district attorney in Fulton County, all of a sudden her mother was pronounced dead. I don't believe that for a hot second. If anybody has any information of where she is hiding, please let me know, because when you mess with my family, now I'm going to mess with yours, and I'm going to let the world know. We're not tit for tat here. I don't lose, you do, and I'm going to let the world know.
Okay, let me give you some information. She was born in 1972. Her father was at UCLA Law School, and what was going on is developed. It looks like by 1980 he had broken up with her, or 1981 he had broken up with her. They weren't together. I have my reasons for reaching that conclusion. I won't state them, but it was.
Come on, Judge.
No, I mean, it involves some personal acquaintances and some inquiries that were made through me, which I'm not going to reveal because it is what it is. It just was trying to secure a hookup with a certain young lady. So I won't get into that to avoid embarrassment of the young one. Well, she's not young now. And her sister that I knew at the time. But anyway, this was early 1980, 81. So he was broken up with her mother, that's John Floyd, who, by the way, was a pretty good guy. He always could be counted on to be there when it was necessary to make a move on the administration or do something that was conscientious about getting things together. So I don't fault him on that. And he tried probably more than 1,000 cases as a trial lawyer. And he at one time was Nelson Mandela's attorney in some of the things he was trying to do down in South Africa. So he was a good brother, but let's just say the relationship, as I understood it, that he had with Fani's mama was not the greatest in the world from day one. So I'm not surprised that there are these allegations that she disappeared. That might be consistent with some other things that might be laid at her feet. So it looks like Fani kind of got abandoned and left here in daddy's care more so than mama, because mama seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth someplace.
After killing police officers.
Right. And the mother was a
That's
criminal.
that bank robbery allegation. That was quite popular. I had somebody I was personally acquainted with. He was a professor at a place called California State College at Los Angeles, now known as California State University at Los Angeles. We called it Cal State. And he robbed several banks, hijacked an airplane, this tenured professor, and flew to Cuba. There was another somebody I was personally acquainted with, again, a professor at Cal State, LA. He was a hitman for the mob, though he was black. I knew him, he disappeared. So she was associated with the same particular institution. And there was a rash of people out there who got involved with bank robberies as a style, even though they were in academia, and they fled the country. Now, I don't have any information. That's just background that may have some bearing on her circumstances. So I don't accuse her of that. I just give you that background so you can investigate it.
I want to ask a question. The case. So if the case is dropped, which it will be, does your record get expunged or?
I've never been charged. I mean, I've never been convicted of anything. I don't have a record.
Well, here's what you want. And I'm not sure what the mechanism in Georgia is, but in Tennessee, your expungement would not be automatic. You have to have your attorney approach the court, which in this case would be Judge McGaffey. And I don't think he'd be adverse to entering an order of expungement. And the reason you enter an order of expungement has to do with the federal system. Let's say you're going to purchase a firearm. There is a question in there relative to not your conviction, which innately is what I think inappropriate, but have you been arrested for? And you might want that expungement struck out. And I think Georgia, like Tennessee, has a provision that says something along the lines of, if you were ever asked directly under oath, you may deny without penalties of perjury that you've ever been arrested, let alone convicted for this offense. So in other words, you might want that just totally stripped off of your record. And if you get that, be sure you get it sent to the following places: NCIC, National Crime Information Center, so it doesn't spread through the law enforcement ranks. You want it expunged on the court records of the local court where this mess started. You want it expunged from the court records. And you want it expunged from the police and sheriff's department dockets and wherever you got booked in. So these are separate entities, and a lot of times people don't get the order around to all of these, and you have these.
Well, Judge, can I just pay you to do it?
I have been retired from practicing law too long, and I'm not licensed in Georgia. Now, the problem comes in because there are private entities that go around to earn pretty decent fees by recording all information on freshly arrested and or charged or indicted people. So they have these records after the expungement process may occur that they can sell for a sum to others. So have your lawyer look into all particular repositories of records. That's just the word up. By the way, your remarks were interesting. And you did have BBC, so this is now spread across the waters of the Atlantic.
Well, I have another question, right, regarding the case, the situation. Will you be seeking restitution?
No question about it. And I think Fani very well knows that and I don't think, Joe Biden is going to give her a pardon. I really don't, because she failed so drastically. You look at Letitia James, you look at Alvin Bragg, at least they understood the assignment. They didn't go off, gallivanting, lollygagging on the taxpayer dollars. Fani actually was just the low of the low in this case. If there was ever a moment to show the world that you were up for the job, this was her moment. And how she became just a laughing stock. It was a media circus. I was in that courtroom. It was embarrassing. She was so ghetto. We didn't care that she drank Grey Goose. It was a terrible, terrible moment for Black women in authority. I was embarrassed, and I don't even like the woman. It was, have some sense of pride about yourself. You were up on the stand, acting like you were big boss, and you were really shaking because I could hear you quiver. Don't play big and bad. You wanted to say, I'm not on trial no matter how hard you want to put me on trial. Those people are on trial for trying to steal, interrupt an election. No, you are very much on trial, and you did it to yourself.
Let me say this about her. She did not have the kind of upbringing she's trying to portray. She got up there and acted like a hood rat, but Daddy was a good lawyer. She was with him for a lot of the time, and Mama certainly wasn't exactly a hood rat either, because she was educated, so she's putting on with that. The interesting thing about it is that when you're talking about a conspiracy, there are some interesting changes in the laws relative to evidence. As I said earlier, you can criminally, feloniously conspire to do what is otherwise a legal act. And the interesting thing is, a conspiracy is viewed as such a dangerous thing to society that there's some relaxations of the rules of evidence, which means all you have to do is show approximate relationship between any one person, which includes anybody that might be caught up in this process, and the conspiracy. And if any one person does any act that advances the conspiracy, then everybody is chargeable with it, even if they did not do anything to commit that one overt act, they call it. So when you get that, they relax the rules of evidence. And a lot of what is said by one person uniquely becomes introducible, subject to introduction against all people. See, in other words, if they were trying to prove the case against you with what she brought against you, then what winds up happening is they have to prove what you did individually. But if it's a conspiracy, all they have to do is prove the existence of the agreement, and then you get stuck with any act anybody involved in this agreement does. You see, now, the other thing to tell your lawyer to watch out for is this: she got you indicted, which removes the onus of illegal or inappropriate arrest from the equation. But considering that it is likely an agreement to bring a violation of your due process rights against you, that creates another kind of situation where she might not be able to hide behind the fact that a grand jury indicted you. In other words, if somebody's prosecuted exclusively upon a sworn out warrant, that makes that person that swore that warrant out, swore to the facts, potentially liable for civil damages. If there is an indictment, that removes that onus, because an immune sovereign agency, the grand jury, has intervened. But if there is a showing of a conspiratorial agreement by the person that evokes the grand jury, then that wipes all that out, and you can still directly proceed against them.
You know, the problem with Fani is she lied to the grand jury to even bring an indictment against me.
Well,
That's the biggest problem. She lied on multiple occasions to even seek an indictment against me. And all of this is going to come out. All of it. She's going to have to pay for it all.
You have to get your lawyer to overcome the general presumption of confidentiality of anything said in front of a grand jury unless a witness in front of the grand jury testifies. And then ordinarily well, at least in the federal system, perhaps in Georgia, you're entitled to what that person said in front of the grand jury as a mechanism of impeachment. But when you've got a conspiracy, again, what happens is all bets are off. So she did something that in my 50 plus years of being involved in the law takes my personal award for the dumbest crook movement of the whole thing. I had somebody from about 30 some years ago who I always kept in mind as the dumbest crook I'd ever encountered in my legal career for what he did by incriminating himself when he had a Fifth Amendment right that would have kept him from doing it. But this fool, who is the chief law enforcement official for the district, gets up there and commits a rookie, narcissistic, con artist, fool movement to self-incriminate. I mean, Dana and I have talked about it. I came up with 4 pages of fine print of stuff the fool incriminated herself in doing. And the main point that you can go after her on is money laundering. All that cash transaction, that was to launder money. That thing with the not the grand jury, the committee that wants her to testify, the subpoena she's ignored. What the problem is there's $7.5 million of unaccounted for funding that the state provided to catch up on past due prosecutions. There's $2 million that's supposed to have been earmarked for sex crimes investigation that's disappeared, and $0.5 million for a total of 10, and then $0.5 million goes to juvenile matters that is unaccounted for. The cash transactions, when you start talking about RICO, look suspiciously like efforts to come up with a superficial cover for somebody laundering money. Where is the fraud coming in? They paid Wade $750,000, which is $750,000, for doing preliminary work on a non-trial set criminal matter. And the interesting thing in his perspective, the president of the United States doesn't get paid but like $450,000 a year. The Attorney General of the United States doesn't get $400,000 a year. The Chief Justice of the Arkansas Supreme Court gets about 240 some thousand with benefits. And here Wade gets $720 million that she has the final say on whether or not he gets paid. So there is ample stuff from what she testified to show that there's collusion between her and Wade, so she could okay anything that he submitted, whether it was valid, accurate, inflated, or totally bogus, and they could split the proceeds. He went and filed some stuff that would protect him income tax wise and to comply with some records, but the transactions between the two of them were in cash for amounts over $10,000 that IRS says must be recorded immediately. So she did not do that. She gave an opening statement which showed some interesting things. And one of the most interesting sets her up for making a knowingly false statement to a federal agency or official, which is to IRS. She contends that she did not have $4,500 to pay $8,500 to pay on a debt due to IRS. They gave her an installment plan, but she got up and testified that at that very time she had $15,000 in a cookie jar in her home place.
Well, I want to insert this because everything what you just said, you're naming all of these criminal activities with Fani Willis and her office, DA office of Fulton County. So, but Trevian, what you were accused of, honestly, is it 18 of total, including Donald Trump, correct? So that would be 19?
Yes, 19, correct.
Okay. I don't even know what charges any of y'all have except for maybe Donald Trump, because you know why? She's doing all of breaking the law. She's committing all these crimes. So what did y'all do? It's that never even came to light. It never,
You don't even know. I don't even know people who are indicted. So it's just like they went in. It's like, okay, well, she's good for media. You know, her case is sexy. We can throw in the R. Kelly. We can throw in the Kanye, and we can get some clicks off of that. Like, I think that, you know, for me, Fanny knows I didn't commit a crime, and that woman who told me everything, who's thinking that that body cam was the only recording device in that room, she got another thing coming. So, you know, you just have to keep one in the chamber, you know, for times such as these, just in case somebody wants to act a fool, you have something that you can shut that down with. And people keep saying, well, why didn't you put the evidence out, you know, way before? Why do that when you don't know what they're going to play what cards they're going to play? People don't know how politics work. It's blood sport. So you always got to have something just in case. And I was always taught, never tell anybody what you're holding, whether it's a gun, whether it's evidence, it doesn't matter. But you got to keep one in the chamber. And it's going to come out. And I know Fanny knows it's going to come out. There's a lot that she's been able to figure out lately that I had tabs on, some of the things that she was doing. I could tell, you know, when I say I was watching, every time they were investigating me, I was watching them investigate me. So
here's what you tell your critics. The charge to the jury would be, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it should be clear and well understood that the defendant in this case has been charged with a crime that is a mere accusation. There is no inference of guilt to be raised by this accusation. The entire burden of proof rests upon the prosecution. The defendant has absolutely no obligation to put on any proof to defend him or herself. The defendant has an absolute right to remain silent. So, in other words, why didn't you put on proof about you had no burden? They have the burden of proving the case. Now, if you go after them civilly or as someone who may evoke the process of the state of Georgia or the federal government to be the complainant in a criminal matter, wherein somebody else is charged, now you got the opportunity to use it. More power to you.
well,
oh, it's
listen.
going to be interesting. Moto interessant.
You play poker? C'est très intéressant, madame. Eh bien, eh bien, eh bien.
So
you play poker?
I do.
Okay, you know you don't have to let anybody know what's in your hand unless
I
they
learned
call
that from
you.
Michael Jordan. He taught me how to play. Yes.
So they got to call what you have, and unless they called it, you can.
Exactly.
well,
You got it.
I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on, and I would love to have you back so you could give us an update. Because this whole Fanny saga mess is not over with. Because okay, even when they do officially completely throw out your case, you are going to file for restitution.
Definitely.
She needs to sit her ass in front of the congressional judicial committee. I need to see Jim Jordan question her. I want to see the Georgia Senate committee question her.
I'll be front and center. Trust
May
me.
I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Instead of restitution, go after her for tortious misconduct and intentional Well, let's put it this way. She intended to try and destroy you with no adequate ground, so that's tortious. She did a deliberate and intentional act against your interest and harmed you, which brings up the issue of punitive damages. The interesting thing is since it would be way outside of her duty and responsibilities as a state agent, her ordinary immunity would not apply. And under the U.S. Supreme Court's latest decisions, you would be entitled to up to 10 times provable actual damages in punitive damages. So whatever your actual damages are.
Can't you also throw in intimidation? Because when you were saying that your daughter, was being
My daughter was at Fisk University, and I had to take her out of school because they kept stalking her, calling her. She could not even go to class because Fanny's office was stalking her at school.
Well, okay, then that becomes intentional infliction of emotional distress, and one of the plaintiffs becomes your daughter, who, if she's still a minor, you would wind up being her next best friend. If she's not, then she can be joined in the action, but that becomes subject to damages, which in her case is intentional infliction of emotional distress if she has any problems. If not, it just is tortious misconduct, the intent to intentionally harm somebody. So that leaves her open to civil damages and punitive damages. The idea is to punish.
No question. We recorded all of the calls.
And one other thing too, when she tries to defend this, since it's personal to her, she's got no entitlement to, nor business attempting to get some state paid for attorney to represent her. So have your legal staff jam her up if she tries to bring in somebody that is on her staff or is paid for by the district attorney's office to represent her. Object to it and say that's an inappropriate expenditure of state funds because it's personal to her. So she gets her tired fat ass hooked up with having to pay for the defense herself.
Right.
I mean, Fulton County has an issue.
Right.
That's who's going to be responsible for paying for all of this.
No, they will be, but you can get a judgment against them and her. And see, the beauty of it is you might collect from Fulton County, but you're also going to have her with a judgment that is a primary judgment. She'll have to file personal bankruptcy to get out from under unless there are punitive damages, which are not subject to bankruptcy liquidation. So get one against her personally that is going to punish her, because if you just get one against Fulton County, she can just sit there, they're paying it for me. Ain't no problem for me. Make it hurt.
Oh,
make it more personal. Yeah. But listen,
make it hurt.
Thank you for coming on. And I definitely want you to come back to give us an update.
Yes, of course. I'm thinking if Fulton County is smart, or not even Fulton County because they have no jurisdiction over it anymore. But I do believe that either Chris Carr, the Attorney General, Brian Kemp, the Governor, somebody's going to need to step in. And I'm thinking it should be before Juan Merchan attempts to sentence President Trump on the 10th. So I'm looking at this to happen any day now.
I think Merchan is going to be in danger of being removed from office for misconduct. His wife was adamantly against Trump. His daughter managed, a $28 million fund to defeat Trump.
Right.
And for years and years, and I've been a judge longer than he has been, it was clear that if any member of your family had any conceivable interest in the outcome of the proceedings, get off the case. You shouldn't handle it. Or give the choice to the parties, both sides, prosecution and defense. Look, my wife is interested in this. My daughter is interested in this. Do you wish me to stay on the case? No, I don't. So you got to go. But they asked him and they had hearings on it. He refused. He stuck with the consequences because it raises the quote appearance of impropriety, unquote. Remember those terms, the appearance of impropriety. That will get you a long way, I think, with your case. And I'm not giving you legal advice because you have counsel. I'm just making an observation about the state of the law.
I appreciate it. And I'm going to roll this episode over and over and over again to make sure I don't miss a single detail.
All right. Thank you again. And I'm
Thank
definitely
you,
going to.
Judge. Thank you, Dina.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
How do I do this? Oh. Okay. I had to
By
figure
the way, Michelle Duke says she'd like to come on. She wants to talk about her rest homes for senior citizens and those who are injured. She wants to talk about the whiskey business. She wants to talk about some things that people are trying to do to come in and bamboozle the system to keep her from doing what she's doing with the whiskey. She wants to talk about the fact that I think it's Guatemala or Costa Rica. She's opened up this restaurant and nightclub and what's going on with that and some of the tie-ins with what's going on politically. So it might be an interesting thing, whatever we can get her in. So
yeah, we talked about that earlier. So
yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
that's sort of a preview. It's going to be something for the sisters where they talk to a woman who has done very well about being an entrepreneur. So some people might want to take notes on how things work from her perspective, and there might be some young ladies out there that want to emulate her success.
All right. I want to move on. So I need to go to the well, first of all, I need for everybody to hit the like button. I don't know how many likes do I have. And I want to say thank you again to Trevian for coming on. And I definitely want to have her come back. Great guest. So we have 800 people and only 500 likes. I need everybody, please hit the like button and please share this video on all your social media outlets. Thank you. So,
and why are they keep giving us an undercount of the people that watch us? I know one show we did, and I looked up what the number of people that were supposed to have watched it, and it wasn't that large, but I heard people in Los Angeles, heard people in Compton, I heard people in Baltimore, I heard people in
you heard
Philadelphia.
I don't know why, but I kind of don't want to talk about
Minneapolis, who had watched this show. I ran into 5 people in Memphis who had watched this show, and all of these people around Miami who had watched this show, and the number of people who state that they saw and described what they saw when we did something does not comport with a statistical possibility based on what YouTube said was the viewing audience.
I don't know. I'll just look into that. But let's move on because I want to talk about Trump being certified today. So it is official. His presidency has been certified. Kamala Harris oversees the certification. People were applauding. So
she didn't oversee it. She's just presented with it. And
she's the president.
Vice president.
No, she's the president of the Senate.
Hold on. As vice president of the United States, she is by constitution president of the Senate. Ordinarily, she can't do anything except break ties and manage the meetings. But what happened is she did no work. She didn't oversee a damn thing. She just sat up there and it's just like, come on, would you sit here and chair this meeting? Okay.
So it's the formalities, you know. So I want to play her remarks from today.
Which
was her message.
The peaceful transfer of power is one of the most fundamental principles of American democracy. As much as any other principle, it is what distinguishes our system of government from monarchy or tyranny. Today at the United States Capitol, I will perform my constitutional duty as Vice President of the United States to certify the results of the 2024 election. This duty is a sacred obligation, one I will uphold, guided by love of country, loyalty to our Constitution.
I don't buy that crap. They're trying to save face because they were trying to steal
And my unwavering faith in the American people. As we have seen, our democracy can be fragile, and it is up to then each one of us to stand up for our most cherished principles and to make sure that in America, our government always remains of the people, by the people, and for the people. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
You know, I find it interesting that somebody with Canadian citizenship who was an adult before they moved back to the United States of America, though a young adult, talks like they grew up here rather than just exploited here. And there was cheating going on even in this one. I was an election representative for a congressional candidate, and I'm at the election commission here in Memphis, Shelby County, and I'm listening to a conversation with the officials wherein they're trying to reconcile the fact that at a number of precincts, they had more votes cast than people showed up to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just this past November. So they couldn't get away with the steal, so they tried to save face. What did Trump say? Too big to rig?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was not impressed, and she actually had nothing to do with this except show up, hit the gavel, and announce the results.
Well, this
By
is
the way, the difference between this and what happened with Trump Pence in 2020, January 2021, is this. Trump wasn't asking Pence to break the law. There is a statute on the books called the Confidence in Elections Act of 1877, which says approximately that when there is widespread, let's say, distrust of the election results, the vice president shall decline to certify the proposed electoral count and shall instead call for the appointment of a 15-member committee composed of 5 from the House, 5 from the Senate, and 5 from the U.S. Supreme Court to take a minimum of 10 days to conduct an independent audit of the election results or such extra time as is reasonably necessary to accomplish the ends of the statute. So there was widespread distrust of the outcome. There was not on this occasion, because the answer is obvious and overwhelming. And that's was simply saying enforce the law. So she had no option, no legal basis to decline to accept the proposed vote count from the Electoral College. There is a big difference.
right. Well, I want to play the moment that the GOP started applauding when, after Kamala Harris calls the 2024 electoral vote for Trump.
The state of the vote for the President of the United States, as delivered to the President of the Senate, is as follows. The whole number of the electors appointed to vote for President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, the majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
So I guess
You
her
know, wait, let me point something out. What's wrong with what you just heard?
what that she talked about the vote she got.
Yeah. In other words, the decent thing would have been for her to have recused herself and allowed the announcement to go to the Speaker of the House.
I
in
thought
her
about that
state.
too because she was running.
Yeah, in other words, it's just an obscene disregard for protocol. Anytime you are mentioned as a party to the proceedings, you should get the hell out of it. She was running for the office. She had no business announcing the outcome, because what if she had said, no, we're not going to? But see, that's just the wrong appearance. If you're involved, you've got no business having any role in announcing the outcome other than conceding that you lost.
Maybe again, when you talk about appearance, the purpose of appearance is that symbolism. Let her say her name, that this was a woman, a quote unquote black woman, allegedly, who ran for president. So let her put on a record how many electoral votes she got, which i.e. that participation award.
And
First
I
of all,
wonder how much George Soros had to do with this. And that's in context of him getting the award from Biden. When if there's
right, the
anyone
Sun
who is,
selected award, the
yeah,
Sun.
if there's anyone who has behaved in an un-American fashion to buy representation, to purchase elected officials, to essentially bribe elected officials and control the procedures of the United States and various states, it is Soros, and he does not deserve that award. So since she is a creature of Soros, who has owned her from before she ran for district attorney in San Francisco, it was totally inappropriate for her to get up there and compound it by giving the impression that she has other political aspirations that this is supposed to help. See, look what I did. I got up there and I followed the law. You did not, because you weren't even supposed to have been involved.
Right. So this is her remarks after the Electoral College vote count certification.
Well, today was obviously a very important day, and it was about what should be the norm and what the American people should be able to take for granted, which is that one of the most important pillars of our democracy is that there will be a peaceful transfer of power. And today, I did what I have done my entire career, which is take seriously the oath that I have taken many times to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which included today performing my constitutional duties to ensure that the people of America, the voters of America, will have their votes counted, that those votes matter, and that they will determine then the outcome of an election. I do believe very strongly that America's democracy is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. Every single person, their willingness to fight for and respect the importance of our democracy. Otherwise, it is very fragile, and it will not be able to withstand moments of crisis. And today, America's democracy stood.
And by the way, she sounds like somebody is reading something to her in her IFB. You noticed her pauses?
Are you still on that? I think we moved past that.
No, I mean, but that's someone's feeding her that, because that's not her. Look at her pauses. I have had worn one with the show, and I know what happens if somebody's trying to feed you some information. I wouldn't use it unless it came up that we had to redo something. And that's what she sounds like. Next point is she's an attorney for the state of California, and they do have some ethical requirements out there. And anybody that is a licensed attorney ought to know good and damn well that you need to recuse yourself when you are a party to the proceedings. You should have absolutely nothing to do with the procedural aspects. And she did go along, and she sat there and she announced results and got to mention her own name. That's just inappropriate. One of the cardinal rules of determining whether or not there's an ethical conflict is if you happen to mention, or you get to mention your name in the proceedings, when it comes to outcomes, there's an ethical conflict. You shouldn't be making the announcement. So there you go. That's just another strike against her. Absolutely disgusting.
Well, one last thing on a day of events that took place in the Capitol for the elector certification, right? Let me share this, because another part of her duty is to swear in the new senators. And she did, but one of the new senators' husbands refused to shake her hand. This is GOP Senator Fisher and her husband, Bruce.
Obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you are about to enter. So help you God. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you. Congratulations to you. Thank you. Sure. Okay. Got to make this a little bit first. Okay. So much. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
You do that, guys. Spread out.
By the way, if I'm not mistaken, the senators could have had someone else, like a justice on the Supreme Court or a federal judge, swear them in.
But that's her job to do.
That they don't have to limit it. Generally, the rule is you can pick anyone who is authorized to administer oaths to swear you in.
Okay, but if that's part of her duty, what's wrong with her doing that?
Just like her husband, she could have asked one of the Supreme Court justices to swear her.
Oh, the senator could have.
Yeah, or
maybe because honestly, I have a problem with her husband, because that shows you have very low class. This is it, like it's a blood sport, but this is a sports of politics. You don't like her, but she lost. Your person won. Your wife won. So at the end of the day, it is about governing. It is about we the people, not about your own personal feelings for her. She's out of there in a couple of weeks. Shake her hand.
Well, how about this one? It's 1934, and you're in the Weimar Republic, and you have had some visitor through a time machine, and you know what's going to happen, and you're in the Bundeswehr. Are you going to shake hands with Adolf Hitler if you can get away with not shaking his hands?
Are we in the same government?
No, if you were in Germany and you knew what you knew.
No, Judge. I'm not going to go back and forth with you, because that is not a good explanation. Because you're talking about you're on the same team. This is your fellow citizen. This is not an enemy. This is not an enemy from another
It is an enemy.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Your job as a congressperson, as a VP, as a president, as a senator is to govern and to make sure you are governing for the people, not you. Now, What happened
Okay,
during
that
the
might be the elected official, but her husband is entitled under the First Amendment to
Well, he
say,
can do
I
whatever he
protest,
want to do,
because
but
this
I'm
woman
calling her with
attempted to
low
subvert.
class.
This woman attempted to subvert the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and general due process. I'm not going to shake this person's hand. They are a scoundrel.
But then how about, wait. So how many other scoundrels, politicians got their hands shaken?
Well,
They're
they
all
may have,
dirty.
but
They're all dirty.
people don't shake hands with everybody.
Listen, everybody in DC is dirty. Nobody is
Not
clean.
everybody.
Nobody is clean. Nobody
Well,
is
some
clean.
are cleaner than others.
People in this picture here, they're not clean.
Some are cleaner than others.
They're not clean. So who are you talking about her husband? You didn't want to shake her hand, fine, but
It's First Amendment right.
You made it again low. It shows that you have low class.
Well, low class, you despise the person who stuck their hand out.
It wasn't even called for. It wasn't even called for.
It happens all the time. People don't shake somebody's proffered hand. I'm not shaking hands with you. You're a scoundrel.
Right. Okay, but
so he's not getting sworn in. She is. He doesn't have to endorse this woman by shaking her hand. It happens.
Well, I mean, she didn't care, but I'm just saying, listen.
Matter of personal dignity. I'm not going to shake this fool.
The campaigning is over. The campaign is over. It's done. It's done. So
the person's character is what it is. Let me ask you this. There's a formal affair. This person has been involved in organized crime, child abuse, or child molestation, or child sex trafficking, and he sticks his or she sticks her hand out to be shaken. Are you going to shake it if you have the impression or the firm belief or opinion that this person has not been prosecuted, but to all intents and purposes, this is one of those low-class people, or low caste, or low behaving people that you are not going to endorse?
Wait, why? I'm shaking up. Why would I shake?
In other words, you walk into a function and a person that is, let's say, the president of the Grand Dragon of the Klan is holding some office or is involved in something and is in a reception line and sticks his hand out, and you know this person is Grand Dragon of the Klan, are you going to shake his hand?
Why I'm shaking his? Why am I there?
It depends. You don't have to endorse.
No. Why would I be somewhere if it's a Grand Dragon's?
Because they might have gotten an invitation from somebody.
This is a random
with the function.
So the function is not honoring the Grand Dragon. But
if he's there, look at Bird.
He's just there.
Bird Bird was literally Grand Dragon for the KKK. So you got this person who for 35 years has been leading the charge on what happened.
I would shake his hand.
Well, but you might have a legitimate.
How many hands have you shaken that they were probably racist?
There are some people whose hands I have refused.
What is that? I would shake his hand.
Well, it's okay. I'd probably, since I had pumped a lot of iron, there were some people's hands I shook that I tried to break, and I did a good job of it. So, yeah, I mean, and there were some people I refused to shake their hands. And then I've said sotto voce, you're a low-down scoundrel. Hell no, I'm not shaking your hand.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to January 6th.
Looks like those people are going to be pardoned.
Right. So, yeah, I think Trump will pardon them.
From what I saw, it looked like criminal trespass or misdemeanor vandalism. So, 6 years in jail.
He said he was going to pardon them.
Yeah. And they haven't conspired anymore than Fani Willis, Letitia James, Bragg, Smith, and a whole host of folk that conspired to get Trump. They haven't done anything more conspiratorial than they did. And I think what the folk I just named did was a lot worse because it diminishes respect for our laws. It's on a level that is much higher, and the fundamental acts that were committed are felonious. They're not misdemeanant.
Well, speaking of January 6th, right? The View, because today, Monday, this is after New Year's, this is after Christmas, so everybody is back to work, regular programming on television. So The View, they were live today, and of course, they always say stuff that go viral, and particularly Sunny Austin, and she made remarks comparing January 6th to 9/11 and the Holocaust and slavery. So let me
Goddamn fool would say that.
let me play this clip.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget, because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
I want to ask you.
Yeah.
I think the country never should forget the persecutions, the lawfare that was apparent in what happened to go against the otherwise peaceful protesters on January 6th. I didn't see anything other than misdemeanor trespass and some acts of vandalism by the protesters, which is par for the course when you have civil disobedience, when you exercise your First Amendment rights to assemble otherwise peacefully in order to have an opportunity to petition for redress of grievance against the government. You have a right to assemble. But I think, even though she's got a right with her ignorant ass to say exactly what she said under the First Amendment, she's a damn fool. And she showed it by what she said. And that's one of the low moments. And I attribute a lot of the mess that's going on right now, the lawlessness, the extreme polarization of our society, to nonsense like this. By the way, if somebody had said that on behalf of Trump and had a position with that show, they would have been thrown off. I lost about $2.5 million in the last 18 months because I say what I say. Now, I'm not afraid to take the money loss because it's right to say it. But why do they still have this idiot who nobody knows what her name is on a venue that gets this much play and has this much influence by a know-nothing idiot who gets to pontificate on the right and wrong of what's going on? To equate January 6th with the Holocaust is patently ridiculous. To equate it with 9/11 is blasphemous under the American system. There have been riots of 10,000 people, 50,000 people, 60,000, 80,000 people in Washington, D.C. over the last century. There was one in 1919 in Washington, D.C., where 500 some people got killed. There was a 5-day-long insurrection for real, or at least riot, that had to have the U.S. Army come in and put down. And when you compare 180 people who were generally peaceful, other than the fact that they might have gotten a little unruly after they were let in. They didn't kick in any doors, by the way. They didn't have to break windows to get in. And it was a place that is generally open to the public, which is the open proceedings of the U.S. Congress that were in question. And their purpose was to witness whether or not the Constitution and the laws of the United States were complied with. The violence was not theirs. The violence was what happened with a few law enforcement officers who got out of line, one of whom shot a fellow officer, a female, who was off duty and there as a protester, and somebody dropped dead from the excitement of a heart attack. So that's really a whole lot of violence, especially since these same clowns, including the ones that are on the committee to oversee the persecutions for 1/6/21, they were rah-rahing to all of these people that were committing arson and other felonies in the cities of America behind these George Floyd BLM riots that went on for the last 6 or 7 years. So it's rank hypocrisy. It's just.
Well, I don't understand, like, why would she, compare it to 9/11 Holocaust or chattel slavery? Saying that we should never forget. Well, none of us would. Well, we should never forget any major protest that took place in D.C. along the Capitol or in front of the White House. But people do forget. So, is it because these people, I will say not so much break into, but they walked into a bum rush their way into the Capitol? Yes, there were people that went into offices and kicked their feet up or whatever. But
yeah, like I said, criminal trespass, a misdemeanor.
Wait, they trespassed. Yeah, criminal trespassing. Did they? Were they armed or no?
No, there was nobody armed. The only violence was Capitol Police against the demonstrators. One Capitol policeman shot a fellow cop to death. She was off duty and she was there as part of the protest, and she got shot to death. And one other person dropped dead of a heart attack from the excitement. So where is all of the violence that these clowns are talking about when they say thousands of people died, not one. You're talking about an incident with 180 people instead of 3,000 dead folk?
Right.
You want to equate that? You're talking about 6 million people dying in the Holocaust, and you want to equate this incident on January 6th with this? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
See, that is polarizing the American public with total irresponsibility being demonstrated in consideration of the vile outcomes. You have got the United States in camps that are going after each other. You have got millions of people. You have got 10 million people minimum who've crashed the border, who are committing criminalities. And you cannot have 10 million people coming into any country, including the United States, and not destabilize the mess. And this person, the same one, if I'm not mistaken, has gotten up time and time again supporting this illegal transgression of the borders. So how can you sit there when you have had many more people who have died as a result of that breakdown in the law, and you dare to compare something with one person dropped dead of a heart attack, one person got shot to death, a cop off duty got shot to death by another cop, there were no armed people, and you equate that with a situation that you have allowed where you're setting up the next 911. 911 is already in place. All they got to do is set off the devices. They don't have to hijack airplanes. They don't have to parachute in. They don't have to helicopter in. They don't have to take rubber boats from a submarine to get in. They're already here.
Well, this is the thing. Speaking of deportation and the border crisis, so Congress came back in session on Friday on the 3rd, and they were good night from Ohio. Shout out to Ohio. I'm in Ohio.
Whoopee.
So they finally were able to pass a deportation bill, but there were a lot of Democrats, 158 Democrats that voted against. Yeah, and I want to play this clip of Representative Nancy Mace.
Biden-Harris criminal illegal aliens have molested American children, battered and bruised American spouses, and violently raped American women and girls. In April 2022, an illegal alien was arrested in my home state of South Carolina for sexually abusing an 11-year-old girl after being previously deported not once, but twice. In May 2022, an illegal alien and Guatemalan national raped and impregnated a 9-year-old girl in Ohio. In April 2023, an illegal alien broke into a woman's house in Indiana in the middle of the night, physically assaulted her, and held a box cutter to her throat while he raped her. In July 2023, an illegal alien and Honduran national raped a 13-year-old girl in neighboring Virginia, just 25 miles from where we stand today. In March of this year, an illegal alien followed a woman from the train station, grabbed her, robbed her, and sexually assaulted her. On March 25th of this year, an illegal alien was arrested and charged with raping a mentally incapacitated 14-year-old girl in Alabama. On May 13th of this year, a serial rapist illegal alien was arrested in California for raping 2 women in a van, which authorities referred to as his rape dungeon on wheels. In April of this year, an illegal alien was charged after breaking into a mobile home in Michigan and viciously sexually assaulting 2 young girls under the age of 13. In May of this year, an illegal alien abducted an 11-year-old girl in Florida, forcing her into his van, brutally raping her. In June 17th of this year, 2 illegal aliens raped and strangled 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungarai in Texas. Just last month, an illegal alien was arrested after raping a 10-year-old boy in Mississippi. Earlier this month, an illegal alien convicted of a violent assault in Massachusetts was released and went on to rape a child. This is hardly an exhaustive list. We see more tragedies like these with every passing week. The blood and the physical and emotional scars of these tragedies rest on the hands of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
What about the one that burnt that woman to death on the subway?
That as well. So, you know,
you want to talk about this, and this damn fool on The View wants to equate what happened 1/6/21 with all of these things and overlook that? No, you just read a list of travesties that far exceed the impact of what happened 1/6/21. See, the whole point of what they're doing is they were seizing on a moment to be able to bandy around the term insurrection. Why? I've said it before. There are 2 situations that remove the protections of American constitutional law from American citizens. One is when there's foreign invasion, and 2, when there is an insurrection. The only real insurrection we've ever had is the Civil War, which is synonymous with insurrection. So to equate 1/6/21 with the U.S. Civil War is absolutely absurd and a disgraceful slur against all of the people that died during that war, which, by the way, the total casualties for the Civil War are roughly twice all of the rest of the casualties for every other war the U.S. has been in, including the 2 world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and in the sand pile added together, twice that number. And to equate January 6th with being worse than that, or with the insurrection that produced that horrendous casualty count, is absolutely obscene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's un-American.
No, it is. staying on this deportation thing real quick, I want to share this. So Honduras president, I don't know how you pronounce her first name, Xiomara Castro, just issued a threat to President Trump saying she'll shut down the U.S. military bases if he deports Honduran nationals.
Pueblo hondureño, quiero manifestar que esperamos que la nueva administración norteamericana del presidente electo democráticamente, Donald Trump, sea abierta al diálogo, constructivo y amistoso. Que no tome represalias innecesarias contra nuestros migrantes frente a una actitud hostil de expulsión masiva de nuestros hermanos. Tendríamos que considerar un cambio en nuestras políticas de cooperación con Estados Unidos, especialmente en el campo militar, en el que sin pagar un centavo por décadas mantienen bases militares en nuestro territorio, que en este caso perderían toda la razón de existir en Honduras.
So she says, faced with hostile attitude of mass expulsion of our brothers, we will have to consider a change in our policies.
You better do it the right way, because if I was Mr. Trump when I got sworn in, I'd promptly send 101st Air Mobile Division down there and dare somebody to try and throw us off of the base when we are ensconced at a place we do have a legal lease on,
right,
and treaty agreement for. I dare them.
It says we would have to consider a change in our policies of cooperation with the United States, especially in the military arena, where without paying a cent for decades, they maintain military bases in our territory, which in this case could lose all reason to exist in Honduras. We hope that the new U.S. administration of democratically elected President Donald Trump will be open to dialogue, constructive and friendly, and will not take unnecessary reprisals against our migrants who normally make a great contribution to the U.S. economy.
Send their ass back and let them do it legally and apply to the U.S. Embassy to get any visa. And by the way, why would they be allowed to claim refugee status if Honduras is so nice any damn way and she's representing such a democratic institution? So they would have no claim to come in and be given that status under American law. She defeats the purpose. And by the way, the reason we have the military base there is because we sacrificed our material and the time and energy, sweat, toil, and efforts of military personnel to protect them from what at the time were proposed communist uprisings. So we have a purpose there, and the very fact that she's there to utter this nonsense, which may be just for political purposes internally, the very fact that she's there shows the effectiveness of our intervention at their request to give them help to keep a revolution from occurring. So she needs to be careful. I would still like to see the 101st Air Mobile in there, or a Marine brigade or two or division.
Mm-hmm.
It might be an interesting exercise, a training exercise that would be of advantage, considering that we need to deal with the logistics of moving these troops that we haven't done since Gulf War I in 1990. And we are facing a situation like that about trying to get large numbers of troops over to Taiwan to reinforce them if the People's Republic of China does what it says it's going to do after 2027.
Well, if she's saying that her people contribute to our economy, honey, we don't need it. Why are they not contributing to your economy in Honduras?
And why aren't you grateful for us saving your country from communist incursions by putting the military base over there so you would be off limits? I think you got elected because there was no communist takeover 35, 40 years ago.
I want to ask you this question. So Trump certification, it was certified today, so it's official. However, with him being convicted in New York, the question I have is Trump the first sitting president to be a convicted president?
I don't know. I don't see, I mean, I may be wrong, but I haven't conducted an exhaustive search, but it looks like he's the first, but I can't attest to that. The other thing that's
Well,
interesting.
that's why he
Yeah, the other thing is technically the appeal process has not even started. So the conviction is not firm unless the appellate process has been completed, which has not even commenced. And that requires sentencing. Now, as a pragmatic matter, these idiots have put the state of New York in a real interesting position, which I suspect might get resolved with the intervention of a number of states who did support Trump, with the grounds being New York is attempting to deprive us of the outcome of our decision under federal law as to who our chief executive is going to be as a result of our electoral college representatives voting for Donald Trump. So that would make the issue directly right when one state sues another for immediately proceeding to the U.S. Supreme Court, where I imagine this is not going to survive long. So it's an exercise in futility. And what Mearsham is doing exactly what Fani Willis did, digging a deeper and deeper hole for themselves after exhibiting such intransigence.
So it says the defendant may choose. No, it says that defendant appear for sentencing following conviction on January the 10th. That's my brother's birthday. 9:30 in the morning at the courthouse located at 100 Center Street in New York. Ordered the defendant may choose to appear at his sentencing in person or virtually. Counsel is directed to inform the court of defendant's preference no later than January 5th. That was yesterday.
He could tell him to go to hell. And you know what the deal is? He's now the presumptive president of the United States, which means he's entitled to full Secret Service protection as a vital asset to the United States of America and is critical to its defense. He's commander in chief of the armed services and chief diplomat in waiting. And for them to attempt to deprive him of his liberty for that is intolerable to the federal system. So the whole thing can be stopped, and he can essentially tell them to go to hell. And if there is an attempt to go around that, then okay, New York, send somebody up if you dare to have a shootout with the Secret Service or the United States Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, or the U.S. Navy, because they would be trying to take, New York would be trying to take the commander in chief of the military in custody, or the presumptive one. Mm-hmm. Come on up. It ain't going to happen. And Mearsham needs to sit there and put everything on hold, and he's got no damn business trying to proceed with this sentencing. Because what ultimately should happen as a procedural matter is somebody needs to come in there with sanity and say, in the interest of justice and in the federal system, to avoid a constitutional crisis, this matter should be dismissed, and the state joins in a motion for new trial or dismissal of the charges.
But you know why? It's the Democrats in the state of New York and the Biden administration that said we need something to hold over this man's head throughout his presidency. When we go on these little, major news outlets and we're going to be bashing Trump, we could say convicted, he's a convicted president, he's a convicted president.
Yeah. But you know what'll throw that off?
Soundbite.
You know what'll throw that off? The proper appointment, and it's going to be easy enough since the Republican Party controls now the House and the Senate, of a special prosecutor or prosecutorial staff and investigating this whole thing. And if there's one meeting or any kind of collusion between Mearsham And any of Bragg, James, Willis, Smith, etc., all of them are subject to an appropriate indictment for conspiracy, which will throw the whole damn thing off. And they are just like on this train wreck pathway to get put in jail for felony conspiracy. I hope it happens. It would set a good precedent. So when somebody else in the future considers that, they say, oh, no, we're not going to have that happen. Every now and then, see, you need to set up something that deters inappropriate behavior. So when you sentence somebody, you talk about deterrence. And I'll say this, as a long-term jurist who's been on a bench longer, been about this legal practice as long as or longer than Mearsham, the problem is he never should have been on the case, one. Two, he gave a really messed up set of charges to the jury, which means I don't care how long it takes between what the jury came back with, the verdict is invalid because he gave the wrong charge of law to the jury. He refused to charge the necessary elements for the crimes that Trump is committed of, which are A, if he's supposed to be attempting to pay hush money to somebody to hush a crime, what is the crime? The crime becomes a necessary element of the offense, and they never were required, in spite of multiple defense requests and demands, to prove that there was an underlying crime that was committed. And the law is, if there was no underlying crime committed and somebody paid money or did something that was otherwise not going to be done to hush somebody from embarrassing them, that's felony blackmail. So why did they not go after Stormy Daniels for felony blackmail and induce her to give that shotgun testimonial immunity on Trump in return for her not being prosecuted for that felony, serious felony, provable felony, in order to embarrass this man, which sets up another bulge in the conspiracy envelope. In other words, whoop, it's this big, now boom, it suddenly jumps out that and more people get caught up in it.
Well,
it ought to be interesting.
Very interesting. Let's see. All right, we winding down, but there's a couple of things I want us to touch on. Guys, I need you to hit the like button. How many damn likes do I have? I got 800 likes. Oh wow. And
wow, whoopee.
Honestly, remember when you first came on? Yeah, I really do think that they are kind of suppressing the views over here because we always talk about Fani hard, and they don't like that. So yeah, it's whatever. And I am going to get to the super chats in a second. Just a couple more things I want to highlight. I want to go to the what is this?
I'll take and see. This, like I said, in the last year and a half, this cost me a couple of $1 million+ for opening my mouth and speaking out against this. So yeah, you know, go for it. Somebody violating my.
Do you regret opening up your mouth? Do you regret that it costed you that money?
No, I'd be willing to sacrifice it. Sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice your life, let alone the money. Who's giving Denzel the award?
So, okay.
I would have refused to accept it, by the way.
Well, he just became born again and he is a preacher now, Denzel. So he was going to accept it. But this is the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony. So yes, Denzel got an award.
Soros to try and diminish freedom. So okay, fine.
This Hillary Clinton got one.
If there is a witch that is not deserving of a freedom medal, that is this. devil. Look at it. That was an interesting man right there. I love that. I love that.
You know who posted this? Trevian posted this.
I love it.
That's exactly what she did.
Yes, the Tana. Tamalo.
So yes, Hillary Clinton received one. And where's this? Oh, and this is George Soros' son. He received it on behalf of Alex Soros. He received it on behalf of his father, George Soros, and he's just as vicious as his daddy.
Hell of a contributor to American freedom, and the son of a bitches have been trying to sit there and restrict it, diminish it, and extinguish it.
Are they doing a moment of silence?
Sure. His inspired. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to George Soros. Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world. Educated in England, he settled in America as he became an investor and philanthropist, supporting key pillars of open societies, rights and justice, equity and equality, freedom now and in the future. His inspiring generosity reminds us all of our capacity and our obligation to stand up to the abuse of power and to be guardians of democracy and all people yearning to be free.
Oh, I just said it could play, but I didn't want to hear it.
Please give me a break.
Wait, did he say that he was Jewish? His family's from the
family in Hungary. George Soros' freedom is awarded to George Soros. Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world.
You know what? We should do some research on that, because I don't think he escaped Nazi Germany. I think he was probably already over here. I don't.
Well, some people got to leave before it really hit the fan.
Yeah, but for some reason,
Albert Einstein, amongst other people.
I think no. I'm not saying that. There were a lot of good people that got the opportunity to leave, but I think he's lying about that. George.
It may be, but the point is, if there's any one person responsible for the diminution of the rights of Americans, he's one of them, buying off all those prosecutors like Kamala Harris and buying off other elected officials, diminishing the First Amendment severely, a foundation, a primary, fundamental, basal foundation for what makes America what it is in a positive way. The Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment being free from inappropriate searches without probable cause, the Fifth Amendment being free from self-incrimination, et cetera, that clown has done a whole lot to subvert that. He has beat the law, 5,200 counts of indictments against him that were provable with that mortgage fraud scam out in California and all across the country. And in California, where they were going after him, Kamala Harris, one of his bought-off prosecutors, sat there and saved him. He made money off of that. I know he did some nasty stuff in Maryland, and he's done it in other places around the country and bought off a whole bunch of the prosecutorial authority that has essentially destroyed effective law and order in the major cities of the United States of America. That's one hell of a commendation.
You're talking about George Soros.
A Medal of Freedom.
You're talking about George Soros. Yeah, you know what? Listen, it's a lot of dirty, evil people in politics and these wealthy billionaires that, partially you could say control politics because they control the politicians. They're not good people. They don't do it.
And this guy has used his money not to ensure free speech, not to ensure due process of law, not to ensure fundamental fairness, but to impose the same mechanisms that the Nazis he claims to have fled from did to his native Germany and Austria.
Right.
Or East Germany or East Europe.
Well,
it's a travesty. And to give one to Hillary Clinton, what the hell did she do except mess up?
Yeah, she had a American ambassador killed over in Benghazi.
Yeah, that was a horrible situation. Violated the security protocols by not having sense enough to use secure email channels. I mean, what did she do?
So I want to say thank you to J.R. Wims for the super chat. He's clearly revolted by her. Again, JR, 1930s bonus army riots. And Carolyn Dorsey, no questions. Just want to say Happy New Year, Judge and Dana. God love you. Love you too, and I appreciate you. Yes, Jesus loves us all. Thank you, Carolyn, for that lovely super chat. Now, I said that going forward that we was not going to go live on Thursdays. I wanted to pre-record you talking about legal stuff, right?
I guess I talked about that a whole lot today.
Well, yeah, when we talk about Fani, it definitely, yes, we talk about the legal
what's
aspect.
happening in D.C. And by the way, that thing about the pension riots that occurred in D.C. where General MacArthur came out. Yeah, where General MacArthur came out and oversaw the suppression of the disturbance. Yeah, that's great. Or how about the several occasions where the KKK marched in D.C., or what happened in 1919 with the week-long upset where 500 plus people got killed. So yeah, how about that one? You know, and you want to talk about 128 people committing misdemeanors, but ramped up the, by the way, you saw what I was talking about with conspiracy. They claimed a conspiracy and got convictions for conspiring. So now a crime that carries a maximum of 11 months and 29 days in a jail. Got them in jail for years because they supposedly conspired. See if they can do that off of criminal trespass and misdemeanor vandalism or malicious mischief. Think of what they can do with a real felony.
So this is okay. So this is another thing I want to bring up. Because I don't want to do a lot of live shows during the week. We could do Monday and I do mine on Wednesday. But I wanted to ask you, what about, definitely want to pre-record you talking about legal, and I'll premiere that on Thursday. We did touch on a little bit of pop culture, but there was something else. I think you know what? I want us to kind of pre-record that tomorrow. Because we may or may not do X Space. I don't know. It depends. But tomorrow or Wednesday, Judge, because I know when the weekend comes, I don't hear or see you.
I'm trying to enjoy life a little.
I know. But so that's why I try to get things all in with you on a weekday. So tomorrow or Wednesday in the afternoon, I want to record the Aretha Franklin conversation. Remember?
Yeah. Memphis again, sleazy, crooked Memphis.
But I want to pre-record it. I don't want to talk about it now. I want to
I got you.
Yeah. And then
you have pictures?
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask Ricky to send me the video that she videotaped of you talking about it. That was a good video. Cause I videotaped you too, but I didn't realize I ain't pressed the button to record it. So she has, remember that video when you was out there talking? So I'm gonna ask her to send it to me so I could play that as well. So I want to record that Tuesday, Wednesday, and premiere it Thursday, Friday of this week. And then also I want to pre-record where it's just you talking about law. It could be something in the Constitution, breaking it down. It could be something trending about the law. So I call it injustice for all. Justice for all.
Injustice for all.
And justice.
Injustice.
Injustice?
In
I
other
was thinking
words,
after the movie.
well, that's justice for all. This is injustice for all. We've been supporting injustice for the last 4 years.
Oh, like injustice. That's cute.
Yeah, injustice for all.
Oh, yeah, that sounds better. Injustice for all.
Low clowns in the name of pushing their little particular cultish mess are willing to subvert the justice that everyone who is a citizen of this country is supposed to be guaranteed, that sets horrible precedents for the future. And then don't forget the barbecue.
Yes. Well, that wasn't a commercial, but I did have this here too. So, real quick, there's a couple announcements that I want to make. So, Injustice for All, that would be Injustice for All with Just Joe Brown, and that will be premiered on Thursday. But I'll just pre-record that. It was, where is the thing at? I'm trying to get used to this thing here. Give me a second. I think it's this. Yeah. And of course, guys, and thank you, Katalia. Katalia always says she loves the judge. She never says she loves me, but that's fine. But she always puts the link to your barbecue sauce in the chat, and you know his link to the barbecue sauce is in the description. Every upload is the commercial, and it's the link in the description. So go to jjbbbq.com or Amazon, or you could go on Amazon and purchase his barbecue sauce. Yes, it is delicious. And where is Southern Belle, honey? Happy New Year to Southern Belle. I don't know where she at. Oh, one more thing. Jimmy Carter. He died 100 years old.
I think he's a very misunderstood person. I met him and had about a half-hour conversation with him one time at a convention. He's a real straight-up guy. But one thing people don't know about him, when he ran against Ronald Reagan had done this movie during World War II called Run Silent, Run Deep, when he played a submarine commander. And they kept talking about this war hero, Ronald Reagan. The truth of the matter is in contrast, Jimmy Carter graduated #1 in his class from the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and he wound up being a nuclear attack submarine commander, and he wound up commanding a boomer, that is a nuclear missile submarine, an SSBN, and he wound up being the Commodore in command of the Northeast Atlantic U.S. nuclear missile submarine fleet during the height of the Cold War. So this guy was Hunt the Red October for real, and got commendation after commendation. So this guy was down in the Arctic ice playing tag with Soviet nuclear submarines for real. And it was very interesting when he was opposed by Reagan. They kept talking about Reagan, the hero submarine commander, which for all of Reagan's merits was not true. He just simply played in a movie. But the real life submarine commander who did that tag stuff you saw in Hunt the Red October, starring Sean Connery, that was Jimmy Carter, but nobody paid attention. They kept talking about he was a peanut farmer. His main thing that he did wrong is he neglected to keep his military prepared, and it was a total debacle when they attempted to do the hostage rescue thing out of Tehran, when Iran took over the American embassy. That was totally botched. It was a debacle.
You think that cost him the presidency?
I think it did. And I mean, I noticed something else too. When Carter was in as president, the last year he was in 1980, I had been in private practice not long, but I was doing pretty well. And this was back in 1980, 45 years ago. And for that year, I cleared $80,000+, income. And for whatever merits you can assign to Reagan, the bottom dropped out of the economy. And I was disgusted to find that I had actually paid more in taxes not as a percentage, but in actual dollars, than Boeing Aircraft had, than North American Rockwell had, than IBM had. And that year later, the bottom dropped. And I didn't make but $28,000 that year, and I had all kinds of problems. So all of my clients went broke. People were laying out on. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Okay.
you. Yes.
I remember being in Philadelphia with a client, a grand jury problem there. And I saw all of these homeless people sleeping on the hot air grapes on the sidewalks in downtown Philadelphia. And everybody that I represented was going broke. So it was very bad.
Can you tell her that you're going to
call? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, but can you tell her that
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
You can't hear me. You can't. I can hear you. Guys, can you guys hear me? These little heifers that he be dating, honey, you know, be thinking that he supposed to just drop everything to pick up the phone for them. No, it's they're no, these are floozies calling him. Yeah. Someone is calling him a floozy. He'll come back up. Here you go. Did you tell her stop calling you?
I just said I'm on a podcast. I'm not going to tell her to stop calling me.
I told him. I said it was a floozy.
It wasn't a floozy. It was a 2-year-old who picked the phone up and dialed.
Like I said, a floozy.
Now, 2 years old on that.
2 years old don't know how to pick up the phone and dial.
Yeah,
No,
they do. This one does.
I know who you're talking about, honey.
I know, but this one does all the time. So
Okay.
anyway.
Well, whatever.
Anyway, it's a mess. And everybody was broke. I mean, people started staying in their brother-in-law's trailer, and people were out of jobs. And I dropped from $80,000 a year in 1980 down 1982. I didn't make but 28,000, 26,000. So that was a hell of a loss of income. So yeah, I don't remember those days fondly.
Well, one more thing on Jimmy Carter, because this is the former president of, well, his son, former president of Iran's son, Pahlavi Reza, and this is a thing where he says Jimmy Carter destroyed Iran.
I want to go back to the Carter administration. The only individual in that administration who understood what could be the consequences of such a regime taking over was Zbigniew Brzezinski. In fact, I remember the discussion I had with him because I happened to be at the White House on my birthday, October 31, 1978.
Wow. You're at the White House October 31st, 1978.
I flew up from Reese Air Force Base. You know, that's where I was training. I came to Washington. I had a short meeting with President Carter, and we had a longer discussion at the time with our ambassador at the time, Ardeshir Zahedi, and we were together with Zbigniew Brzezinski. The rest of Cyrus Vance, Gary Sick, Clark, all of those guys were completely on this premise of let's create a religious belt to contain communism from spreading into the area. That was the theory of the Carter administration. So backing Khomeini, creating a religious belt to, like a dam, to protect the region from the communism to gain influence in the area, namely the Soviet Union. Little did they know that at the time the KGB had over 40,000 Iranians under their control, many of them dressed as mullahs leading prayers in Mashhad and Isfahan and other countries. They already had their influence. They were already there.
Did your father know? Did he already know or no?
Didn't he warn so many governments that if I go, Iran will become Iranistan? It was not less than a year after he left that the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. I mean, look at the whole downfall, the domino effect that it took. But that was the leading theory of the Carter administration at the time, containing communism. When that backfired, and Saddam took advantage of a weakness of the Iranian military because most of their heads were being executed by the revolutionary regimes. Many of our officers, our best officers, were executed. And he thought that it would be a preventive attack vis-a-vis Iran, who was trying to already gain territory, which propelled us in the war.
Oh, that clip is like 9 minutes, and I don't
Yeah,
think.
I've been on that show before.
Yeah, you have.
Behind that wall behind everybody. It's just a little bit above. You go to the left on the screen of his head, up one square above that is
Yes,
where.
I know. But so to what he was saying about Jimmy Carter, destroyed Iran, do you have any recollection?
Well, what that was about was that you had the Shah of Iran. Part of the problem with the Shah of Iran was that under the Nixon administration, Henry Kissinger, then the Secretary of State, had prevailed upon the Shah of Iran to call a series of meetings that resulted in the creation of OPEC at the instigation of the United States, or at least through the auspices of Henry Kissinger as Secretary of State. After OPEC was formed under the guidance of the Shah, what wound up happening is Henry Kissinger set up a series of meetings and persuaded OPEC to have an oil crisis to generate inflation, to knock down the debt loads of various and sundry entities in the United States. And they set up a scheme to deal with exploiting the ups and downs in the oil prices. At that point, the Shah had lost a lot of support in Iran. It seems the Carter administration may have, in fact, come up with this scheme to counter communism by setting up a strong religious state without understanding what that meant. See, I think one of the problems was, from as I recall events, that the perspective was the influence of religion in America without taking into context that religion in America was constrained by the First Amendment in American law. So it could not run a government without taking into the context of the consideration that in Iran, when you set up a religious thing or fostered or assisted in setting up a religious alternative to secular government, that religion could in fact take over and run the government. And it imbued a lot of fanaticism that resulted in the people that lived there who were fanatics taking over the American embassy, which led to his own downfall because our military was not prepared at the time as a result of the negative reaction to the NAM that was of enormous influence then. And
that was coming out of Vietnam.
What's
That was the Carter administration was right after the Vietnam, right?
Well, yeah, but not see. Okay, the NAM got concluded by Nixon. Nixon had to resign, and he was pardoned by his replacement, Jerry Ford. Jerry Ford was in office until 1976 when Carter got elected. At that point in time, that was just 3 years outside of when the NAM wound down, and there was a huge, huge negativism in the United States of America as a result of us suffering our first military defeat which is what the NOM was, and also the lack of libido and the severe depression in the country as a result of what happened with Nixon. See, before Nixon, even with Lyndon Baines Johnson, which a lot of people don't understand now because they don't get the context, it's like you're having an English class in college, and it's a question of what is the proper sentencing structure. They say, well, oh, the president uses this structure, so it is appropriate to use it for communication as formal English because the president of the United States does it this way. That's the kind of impact the president had. Now, after Nixon, everything went to hell and everybody kind of lost faith in the institution, and that spread to American institutions. And there was this severe malaise that Ronald Reagan took advantage of when he started doing rah-rah stuff that people went for. So Jimmy Carter was in the midst of an extremely negative anti-military atmosphere that existed in the United States. And rather than preparing special ops, what is now SOCOM, to handle such things, the military just didn't know how to do it. And I think a couple of the helicopters crashed in the desert when they were supposed to be staging to refuel to do the mission. Everything got miscued, and it was a big live mess, and the rescue mission failed. So Carter lost the election. It was very bad.
Yeah. I think that his loss for re-election for presidency was intentional.
Well, it was inevitable. It was like the country was.
He had too much against him, and I think that was intentional, so that the people would turn, the American people would just turn against him. But
here's the thing. Like I'm saying, the thing with the morale of the country was just about this high off of zero.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, it's like people had all this faith in the U.S. government. We used, even nutrition-wise, well, the government has said this is AAA grade so-and-so, so it must be good. The government says do this, it must be good. The government has rated this so-and-so, so it must be good. And then after Nixon did what he did, a whole big swath of the American public just lost faith in their government. So Carter was the first elected president that came into office after that. Jerry Ford had gotten it because Spiro Agnew resigned and then went to jail. And after that, because of his being the House minority leader under the Constitution, he filled the vice presidency. He worked up a deal with Trigger Dick Nixon. Nixon resigned. Ford pardoned him, and he was the president of the United States at that time. And he maintained office until the next scheduled election, which was 1976, when Carter whipped him and got in. But there was this malaise, and Reagan came in and made everybody feel good. So he assigned a lot of scapegoats that America said, okay, we can blame them. It was kind of what happened to the Jews in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Germany had just lost this war. It was a new nation. It wasn't even 50 years old at the time. And they couldn't understand it because they'd gotten this hype about how great they were. So they lost the war.
World War
I, yeah, and it was suffering great economic hardship, and Adolf and the Nazis gave them scapegoats to blame. So Ronald Reagan used Carter and a number of other things as scapegoats to blame, and, you know, people were seizing that, and he just let the military go somewhere it didn't need to go because nobody wanted to do anything with a military at that point, see.
Right. Well, all in all, 30 seconds. If you had to sum up President Carter, his legacy, what would you say?
A fine man who just was not in the right place at the right time for the office. And I would add this, he did a lot of good before he got in the office as a naval commander. And he did a lot of good when he was no longer president with what he did on his own. And one thing he set up that people are unaware of is he negotiated between Menachem Begin, who was prime minister of Israel, and Anwar Sadat, who was president of Egypt. He got them to sign a peace treaty in 1978, 76, 78. And that restored some stability to the Middle East. And since then, the U.S. has military bases in Egypt. It has close connections with Israel. And it relies upon both of them to give them to give us the intelligence one up on what's going on in the Middle East. So you can't assign that credit to Jimmy Carter. That's one of the positive things he did do.
Okay. Well, R.I.P. to Jimmy. All right, guys. That's it. We'll see you live next week, Monday. However, you will be seeing more of the judge on Thursday because I'm going to be premiering Injustice for All, episode 2. Anything else you want to say in closing before we go?
Hey, enjoy your new year. This is the first Monday of the month for the year. It's Man Monday. And I posted a long thing on X.
Should we read it?
What's that?
Should we read it before we go?
Well, you can if you want to, but it'll take a little while since it's one of those 10,000 stroke things. It's a little short essay. Go there and read it.
How long is this damn essay?
10,000. It's just shy of 10,000 strokes. So it's an essay. Short essay.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I posted it.
Wait a minute. Let me share this.
You might want to read it. I'm talking about freedom of speech. And
But did you post it this morning?
Yeah, I did. Oh, that's a funny incident. I posted that article up there too. It says the queers are arming up.
I don't see it.
Keep going.
Random thought.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, this is it. Somewhat random thoughts for the first Man Monday of 2025.
It's kind of long. You're not going to be able to read it. Just go there, direct them there, and then read it.
Well, yeah, you could go to @JudgeJoeBrown TV on X. It's not that long, but
yeah, it's almost 10,000 strokes.
Oh, never mind then. So go to @JudgeJoeBrown TV on X, and you guys could read his random thoughts on the first Man Monday of 2025.
I think the essence of what I said is in this particular paragraph. Free speech is such an important thing that it cannot be restricted nor curtailed to protect sensibilities without severely negative consequences in a system like ours. Protecting those with low self-esteem from adverse opinion is a kindness, but not an obligation. The most emotionally sensitive collectively tend to be on the low end of both the intellectual and personal performance scale. Protection from negative approbation also promotes dysfunction because it ameliorates the motivation inherent in a perceived need to improve. So it was saying, in essence, the thing to do to man up is to protect free speech and not yield to the call to protect somebody's sensitive feelings.
Right. All right. And with that, Good night, everybody.
I'm right. I listened when I was in school to this stuff about language, English. I tell folk all the time, why do you think you study English in school? So you can communicate. Don't tell me to simplify it, because all you got to do now is highlight the word and the menu will pop up. Just scroll down until it says look up and see what it says. Educate yourself. And if it doesn't come up on the dictionary, oh, did you download a dictionary to your cell phone, which is an option? And even if it's not in the dictionary, you can hit search the web.
Christopher said he read and reposted. Yeah, so go check it out at Judge Joe Brown TV on X, and go to www.jjbbbq.com or Amazon to buy you the barbecue sauce. And with that, we are officially going to say goodnight. Bye.
Night, night. Anyway, that was good. I like the